But I'm telling you, I believe with all my heart, probably the Holy Spirit was like, look at that house on realtor.com.
So let me get this straight. The Holy Spirit knew this man knew he was a pathological liar, but only reached out to tell you to get on Google and look up a house that's already been sold. Christians, y'all are cooked, and y'all gotta take this L. Let's talk about it.
Y'all already know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on.
What is going on, you all? We gotta talk about Tyler Perry's new TikTok Tubi series, Who the F Did I Marry? Let me stop playing. Tyler Perry couldn't be this creative even if he wanted to. But I don't know if you all have been living under a rock. If y'all do not know, Risa has taken over Black Twitter. She's taken over TikTok with this 50-part series about her marrying this man in the middle of the pandemic after a couple of months and not knowing him. Like, that's what it boils down to me. After 5 hours of watching this content, speeding up, I'm like, Risa, girl, you gotta speed it up, sister. You gotta speed it up. Girl, this was a wild ride. Like, this was something that I could not believe each and every chapter. I'm like, girl, you should just turn this into a podcast series. Forget the murder mystery podcast and all the other stuff, the crime podcast. This podcast right here is something to be talked about. And I want to be honest, I got so many thoughts, so many things, girl. Y'all already know where this is going, but I want to talk about this because I feel like this is a learning experience for a lot of us. For me, considering especially that, she put this out around, Valentine's Day and talked about it. And it's just a reminder how much we get online and share these good stories, and how often do you see people share stories like this? We never get these stories in the middle of the relationship. We saw so many people during Valentine's Day share their pictures and share all the love and stuff, and you just never know what a person is dealing with, what they got going on in their relationship. And this is a prime example of that. Like, you just never know. That's why I find this quite fascinating, because even though there was so many quote-unquote red flags, because Risa, the woman telling this story, talked about, this being the United Nations of red flags. So I don't think Risa is a person that is not smart because she did not recognize the red flags. A lot of us see red flags and things and we just kind of ignore them. We choose to ignore them because of a couple of things. And I want to talk about it because I think the main reason why Risa ignored these red flags is because she wanted to be married. And she said this in her TikTok. She said she was, a little bit desperate. She wanted to be in a relationship. But if you listen to her story, you listen to her talk about being brought up in the church and how she found out she was pregnant and she wanted to be married. She said she did not want to be barefoot and pregnant. Basically, she did not want to be, unmarried, unwed with a child and, shacking up. That was the only thing that she was committed to. She was committed to being the quote unquote perfect Christian or living the Christian lifestyle. Everything else, even though her life was in turmoil, even though she was seeing red flags and she was ignoring them, she was so interested and dedicated to her faith of being this, quote unquote, like idea of what a Christian woman is supposed to be, especially from the South. Like, how dare you be shacking up and, with child and you are not married? Like, that's the worst. And it allowed her to be a victim, a perfect victim for Legion is what his name is. Risa and her relationship, getting to know Legion, she met him during the pandemic. She, on her way to the date to go see him, her tire blew out and, he came and, picked her up and took her to get a new car. And she was blown away. She was blown away by his look. She said that she was very attracted to him. She was nervous about him being a catfish, but she said she felt like he was a beautiful man to her and she was attracted to him. And, she said they had a good day, good things and stuff. And it was interesting listening to some of the things that she put out. She talked about him being in a studio apartment and all of these things. And then she got to later explaining, the process of them buying a house and, all of these things and him, allegedly having this money. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, sister, if this man is saying that he got $700,000 in an offshore account, why is he staying in a studio apartment? Why is he driving a Ford Taurus? Like, sister, this ain't making sense. One thing about it, if you pay attention to some folks enough, you will smell or you will see the red flags when it comes to money. I live in one of the fakest cities in the country, Atlanta. When I tell you, I went to an event last week in Atlanta, and it was just so many folks pretending to be rich, and it's really, really sad. I actually did a video on Patreon about it because, girl, I don't want to be a part of the Atlanta socialite celebrity scene because it is very much fake it till you make it. But this man was doing more than faking it. He was talking to imaginary friends to pretend like they were real estate agents, bank folks, and all this other stuff. Like, it's just so many things that just like, girl, it didn't make any sense. Like, sister. So she said she, married this man after knowing him a couple of months, because she was pregnant. She thought she was going to have a child. Unfortunately, she did not have this child. She, suffered from complications and stuff because she was stressed out. He was stressing her out. He was causing a lot of stress. They were looking for houses. Each and every time they're looking for houses and stuff, something is coming up. They're in the process of buying a house because they want to live together, and she does not want to be, pregnant and moving and all that other stuff. She wants to be solidified. She wants to be stable, and I get that. They're going looking at houses and stuff, and I think they started around $300,000, $400,000 house, and then they moved up. And nothing ever came to fruition. Nothing ever came of any of these houses they looked at, to the point that Risa was like, girl, I don't want to look at no more houses, because every time it came time to purchasing a house, there was something going on where it could not be done. The deal could not be made, even when he made a cash offer. The cash offer to me was the biggest red flag. Him telling her that he had $700,000, $800,000 cash in an offshore account. First of all, people who keep money overseas and offshore accounts, they have money. These people who have offshore accounts have millions and millions of dollars over there because it makes sense for them to deal with the high risk of having the money over there because they got so much money than dealing with the taxes and stuff and trying to shield themselves from, the federal government looking at them and like, girl, where you getting this coin from? Somebody with $700,000, which is a lot of quote unquote money to some, it is not a lot of money to be taking that high of a risk. $740,000 is not a lot of money to be, taking that high of a risk, putting in an offshore account. It just doesn't make any sense. And how he was even talking, I'm just surprised that sister never, this is not making sense. And I talked to my realtor, shout out to Tanya. I called her, I was like, Tanya, this ain't making sense because, this is somebody who's a realtor who's been doing this stuff like 20 plus years, knows the game. And I'm talking to her and she's telling folks do this all the time. They lie. It was not crazy for the sellers to ask, hey girl, we need proof of funds. Show us proof of funds. I don't have it with me. Legion did not want to share any type of information showing that he got the funds. That was a red flag. How are we in the middle of a house process, purchasing a home and stuff, and you do not want to share, information to help you get the stuff? Like, that's the biggest thing. Everything else can be inflated and talked about. When it comes to showing that checking account, let me tell you something, because baby, when I bought my house in 2021, them folks wanted access to every checking account I had. They went through all of my stuff. They wanted to make sure I had the money that I said I had on paper. So if you are holding information and stuff, girl, buying a house is the wrong time to be doing it. Them folks is wanting to go through everything, every detail. So that should have been a red flag. Anybody can go look for a house. Anybody can go, with a realtor and look at a house. It takes nothing. It wastes the realtor's time, but realtors who know the game and know the system, they can pick up on certain things and like, hey, and the realtor that, Risa was describing, Scott, I hope he's watching this because, girl, this is a mess. Scott said that, after so long, he said, hey, it's upon me as a realtor. I should have been doing my job. I should have been, asking for information and stuff. I should have did all these things. And this man, Legion took advantage of this. He took advantage of this situation and he took advantage of Risa. He also took advantage of folks when he went to the dealerships and stuff, was talking about, oh, I want to buy a company car. Give me the title, all this stuff printed out, cash off. I'm just going to pay it cash. Let me get on the horn and talk to the company so they can give me the money. If he is this person that is that coined up, two things could have happened. He could have just paid for the company car out his own pocket, said, hey, I'm going to pay for it, and then I'm going to let them, reimburse me and take care of it, Like, he could have did that. If he is high up in the company like that, they would have gave him the money back. He should have had some type of corporate something, like a card or something to swipe. Like, girl, folks who work at these type of like places have money and have access to be able to make stuff happen. Everything that was happening with Legion was something that was always a loophole. He was always able to get through a loophole of, well, you know, this does happen. How many times are we going to let something that doesn't usually happen continues to happen to the point that we start questioning things? It's like, this doesn't usually happen, but it does happen, but you're continuously seeing it happening and you're just like not thinking about it. So the car situation never happened. To me, it doesn't make sense for somebody who says they have $700,000 in an offshore account and, you know, do not have funds to take care of something like this real quick. It doesn't make sense, specifically for them driving the Ford Taurus. I'm not saying folks who have money, you know, go out and just, you know, drive, you know, very, very expensive cars. But this is a person who's looking at a Range Rover for a company car. That doesn't make sense, and he's driving a Ford Taurus. That's why I'm saying, like, Risa was the perfect victim, and he was able to continuously inflate because he knew that she just was not knowledgeable about things, and he just kept doing it. He just kept lying and lying. So it got to the point where Risa did not even want to look at no more cars. She didn't want to look at no more houses. There was one part of the video where sister said, hey, you know, I looked at the accounts, I touched paperwork, I don't understand why somebody would lie. She never once said how much money were in these checking accounts that he showed her. She never said that. Forgive me if I'm wrong, tell me, but not one time that she said she saw, you know, this account and it was, you know, $70,000, and she never did. She said it was money. You were very descriptive. You got a 50-part TikTok series and you're not telling us, you're giving us very detailed stuff, but you can't tell us how much money was in these accounts. Risa, it's because you did not want to see. You did not want to see the truth. So if the Holy Spirit told you to Google the house to see that it's been sold, and the Holy Spirit is tapping on your door and she putting a nail in your tire to blow up on the side of the road, it doesn't matter how many things are being put in your face if you are not interested in seeing the actual truth. As someone who went through a breakup in 2021, I get it. As someone who got into a relationship, got back into a relationship after breaking up in 2020, because, hey, we was like, the pandemic 4 years ago, all of us was like, terrified. A lot of us didn't know what was going on. We've never experienced anything like that. Like, it was something that, like, had the world shook. We just did not know. And I knew I did not want to be alone. As a person who has no problem being alone, someone who is an introvert, I did not want to be alone in this moment. And I also wanted something that was familiar. I wanted something familiar to me to make me feel comfortable. And with that, providing that level of quote unquote comfort, I was then selling off my sanity, my mental health to deal with this. And it's just, we are all negotiating. And unfortunately, Risa did not know what she was negotiating. She didn't know what she was offering until it was too late. She was negotiating her mental health to be this quote unquote, you know, good Christian woman that is not going to be having a child out of wedlock and not be married. She wanted this. She did not say that she wanted to be in a happy marriage. She wanted a loving relationship. She did not name these things. She said she wanted to be married. And when people, even if folks who are very spiritual or, you know, very religious, when you make requests to whatever power above you, you have to be very detailed in this. You have to be very detailed. You can't say, I just want a marriage. There's a marriage for you. Are you happy? That's not what you want. You want a happy marriage. It's the same thing, you know, when black folks talk about being careful for asking for money, because black folks are very serious. They do not want no dead money. They do not want no money coming through someone passing away or life insurance. It's a very, you know, southern thing I know from me, listening to older black folks saying they do not want no dead money. They don't want no situations like that. And I have thoughts on life insurance and, you know, family leaving money after someone passes, because, you know, some thoughts, and I'll get to that later because I've been actually wanting to cover that, to be honest. But it's a very sensitive topic. But Risa was asking for things, and she wasn't asking for things, I feel like, because she wanted them. I think she was asking for things and wanted things because she was taught that she's supposed to have these things. This is what you desire. And that is the issue I find throughout this whole story that is constant. The religion aspect, like her being very religious, her feeling like she has failed if she's not married to this man. She had to. And she was willing to do any and everything to get this. I also think that her being fat plays a big part in this as well. As a person who, like a fat person who is read as undesirable, people do prey on you in certain situations and feel like that you are desperate and they can do things because you are just so happy to be loved and being, cared after or whatever you think is care. That's one of the issues I've had with folks who consider themselves chubby chasers, because I don't believe that folks who are chubby chasers are attracted to the actual body. I think they are more turned on of the power they have over the body. And I'm not saying everybody, because there are some folks who do, like thicker bodies or fat bodies or whatever, but people who are very adamant to tell you that they love this, like love, they just keep saying it over and over again. It's a power thing, especially when this person is not fat as well. Especially when they are not fat, because they recognize the power they hold in the relationship. It's one of the reasons why I refuse to talk to someone who always wants to let somebody know they like thick boys. I just like, girl, I see what you're doing, especially for somebody who's not fat. One of the other things I picked up in this series while watching her videos and stuff is that Risa is telling this story, even though we are engaging and watching it, but it's almost like she's talking to herself. It's almost like she's, trying to explain to herself or make her believe that, girl, these are the reasons why he was able to get away with this stuff. This is the reason why. Because I think Risa continuously having to explain that these are the reasons why I did not see these things, like he was doing this and that. I don't feel like she's explaining it to us. I think she's trying to explain it to herself, because I think she still doesn't understand how she was able to be in this relationship with not catching on to these things. Like, she was just not catching it. And every time she tells these stories, she's like, keep in mind, this and stuff was going on. And, he was talking, I was touching papers and stuff. It's like, for her, she has a hard time grasping that she was lied to and she did not pick up on these things. It's a lot. Another thing, and this is just my thoughts. If you are telling a story, girl, this is not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is not after credits, sequel stuff. If you are going to talk about, I'll talk about that later, just talk about it right now. This is one of the issues I have with content that goes on like Instagram Reels and TikTok short form content. I hate it. Long form content is not going anywhere. This is the reason why I'm not really interested in, posting a lot of stuff on TikTok. I could, but long form content, if you are a storyteller, you can tell a story. There is something very strong about keeping someone's attention for 10, 15 minutes. A lot of people are not able to do that. And I feel like this video that she did, this TikTok series, could have been consolidated. One, she talks a little slow, and that's not no issue. But some of the details and stuff were not necessary. I feel like we can come back to probably that later and stuff and explaining and stuff. But girl, tell the story. We don't need no explanation of why this. Just tell us. What did Wendy Williams say? Just dance. Just tell the story. Don't worry about, this is gonna come back later. Keep in mind, girl, this is not no sequel series. This is not no limited story. Girl, this is not a Marvel after credits. Like, girl, we don't need no Easter eggs. We don't need no help. Just tell the story. Tell the story. Just tell the story. Because we'll keep up on it. But unfortunately, the story was so long. Girl, there's so much stuff to digest. It's like, girl, just tell us now. Tell us the reason why. Tell us right now. We don't want to wait 2, 3, because we didn't forget about now. Because you're not being very detailed in the story aspect of setting it up right. Because this is not your lane. You're just posting videos. So this is just some thoughts that I had that was annoying the hell out of me while watching it, while a lot of people struggle. Because it's like, girl, all these other stories and stuff, all these other details, I did not care about. I didn't care about some of this stuff. Tell us one story of it. I don't need to be hearing the same stuff over and over again. To me, what this story boils down to is how men benefit from marriage more than anybody. Like now she has divorced this man, she's not with him anymore, and now, you know, another wife from the previous marriage has chimed in, and you got all these other stories and scenarios that are coming forward and stuff. But all this is just a reminder of how patriarchy plays a role in our lives each and every day, and how this is a prime example of that. Like this woman was, you know, the only thing that she had her eyes sought on was being married or being in a relationship, that she was unable to see red flags. Patriarchy by way of religion is the ultimate villain in this story. Yes, Legion is definitely, you know, a liar, pathological liar, all the other stuff. I'm not a psychologist, all the other stuff. I can't diagnose him. He was able to benefit from patriarchy and religion. I think for me, like I've said, the ultimate villain of this whole situation is patriarchy by way of religion. We can hold Legion responsible. We can say Legion did his stuff and did whatever. But again, he was able to do this because of these systems and stuff and these things that we have been taught and these things that we, like, this is how it's supposed to be. And we see stories like this and we hear them all the time, how folks have been in relationships and stuff that, you know, are unhealthy. But it's like, girl, this is how it's supposed to go. Also, capitalism. Capitalism played a part of this very, very heavy. All of these things, very, very heavy. I did not talk about it as much, but capitalism as well. Well, yes, this woman was blown away by this man paying bills and taking care of the house and all this other stuff. She's never experienced that before. She's never experienced these things before, a man doing these things. And she thought that that was good. Like, he's a good man, Savannah, but he wasn't. And he was able to lie and scheme and pretend like he was good because he was just paying bills. But there were other things that he was lacking. And when you have money, even if you pretend to have money, you can have power. You do not have to be a good person. I saw this recently while folks were talking about Big on Sex and the City, where he pulled up and he gave, I can't think of her name, he gave her some flowers and some balloons and stuff for Valentine's Day or her birthday or whatever. And she said, oh, like, how did you, like, you went and got these flowers yourself? And Big said, no, the driver got it. Like, I don't have to do these niceties. I don't have to do all this work. I can just pay somebody else to do it. And Carrie was accepting of that because he is coined up. Like, when you have more money, you can do less because your money, like, makes up for that. Like, you don't have to be a good person because folks ultimately want the money because they want stability. They want to be financially stable. And that is dangerous. That is dangerous. Yes, these are my thoughts. Y'all tell me what y'all thought about it. Girl, let me know in the comments what y'all thought. I am not doing no more part 2s. The only thing I will be doing is an uncut version for Patreon. That's all I got. Till next time, talk y'all later. Bye.